So the next power agents or physical agents. Okay, let's continue. So any questions, class? Regarding the physical agents to inhibit the growth of microbes or kill pathogens or microorganisms. Any question regarding the physical agents or physical methods before we proceed with the chemical agents and of course the antimicrobial agents? So the next PowerPoint is actually 108 slides. So I hope we will finish that until maybe 11:30. So any question, class? Before we proceed with the chemical agents, I just prepared the PowerPoint for the chemical agents. Any question regarding the physical methods or the physical agents? Okay, no question. So let me continue our lecture on the physical or the chemical agents to inhibit the growth of microbes. Okay, can you now see my slide, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So these are the chemical methods of microbial growth control. So these are the ways on how to these are the ways to use chemicals to inhibit or to kill microorganisms present in our environment, in the air, in the surfaces, okay? Or it also includes antiseptics as chemical methods or chemical agents on ways to inhibit the growth of microbes in our system or in our tissue. Okay, so for the chemical methods, there are certain factors to be considered whenever chemical agents are used. Okay, so first, prior cleaning of objects. So when you say prior cleaning of objects, okay, you are to remove unnecessary whatever it is that, for example, you need to disinfect your tables. So you need to have prior cleaning of objects. Okay, if there are leaves, okay, if there are dust, okay, so that is the one of the factors that affect chemical agents, prior cleaning of objects. Next is organic load. This is now the presence of what do you call this? This is now the presence of organic materials like pus, vomitus, you know pus, nana, okay? Or the vomitus yung suka, okay? Yung suka na hindi yung suka, yung pag sumuka ka, that is, we call it vomitus, okay? And of course, we have blood and feces. If there are feces on the materials on the surface that you need to disinfect. So these are the factors that affect chemical agents. Another is bioburden. When you say bioburden, from the word bio, it pertains to the type and level of microbial contamination. Marami ba? Okay? So the type and level of microbial contamination. Okay? And of course, the concentration, this is also one that may affect chemical agents. So in the concentration, it should be diluted properly. So when you are to use, there are Lysol that are sprayed, there are Lysol that are to be prepared, and you need to follow the concentration. Okay, so it needs to be prepared, okay, properly. So that's the concentration. For the contact time, okay, this is the time, okay, that the chemical agents may affect, may get or may affect on the object to be disinfected. Okay, so that's the contact time. The physical nature, okay, when you say physical nature, it has something to do with if the object to be disinfected, if there are crevices, okay, if there are smooth or rough surface, or crevices or hinges, di ba? There are times when you are to disinfect the tiles, there are hinges in between, yung parang may groove in between. So these are the factors that you need to consider, okay? Even those crevices or the rough surfaces, you need to disinfect everything, okay? So that's the one of the physical factors that affect chemical agents, the physical nature. The temperature is also one, okay, and of course the pH. Okay, so these are the factors that affect chemical agents. Okay, another is that stronger and more effective antimicrobial chemical agents are limited are chemical agents are of limited usefulness because there are chemicals like what do you call this? Because of their destructiveness to living tissues, okay, they are now limited to use nowadays because there are chemicals now that have less, okay, less disadvantage on the part of the users or the consumers. Okay? So the stronger and the more effective antimicrobial chemical agents are of limited usefulness. Okay? So many disinfectants are useful against pathogens in control conditions, okay? But they may be that when they are in the hospital, they have lesser effectiveness. Okay? So that's one factors that affect chemical agents. So the following are the most resistant prions and of course most susceptible also. We have the prions, bacterial endospores, mycobacteria, cysts of protozoa, active stage protozoa, gram-negative bacteria, fungi, non-enveloped viruses, gram-positive bacteria, and of course enveloped viruses. So when you say level of susceptibility, this pertains on how they maybe be effective on this certain microorganism. Okay, if they are effective, okay, they can be inhibited, they can be killed, they can be destroyed. But of course, if they are resistant, they needs other ways on how to they be inhibit. They can be other ways on how they can be destroyed or to be killed. Okay. So for the measures of effectiveness, this is the measure. When you say phenol coefficient, this is the measure of bactericidal activity of a chemical compound in relation to phenol. So before, okay, this is in comparison in comparison to phenol because before they used the most common, okay, is the phenol, chemical phenol, which is used to as a chemical agent to destroy, to kill, inhibit the growth of microbes. Okay. So this is the measure of bactericidal activity of a chemical compound in relation to phenol, or we call it the carbolic acid. We actually have this in the lab, and I think we use that in one of the disinfectant that we will be introducing in the lab this afternoon. I think you are done with the lab for section G. Are you done? I think you are done with your laboratory with antimicrobial effect of disinfectants and antiseptics. I think we use the phenol. We use the phenol, what do you call this? The other toxic disinfectants for you to observe their effectiveness on certain microorganism. Okay, so this is the phenol coefficient. This is a comparison to phenol. Okay, we use the dilution test. This is the measures. This measures the efficacy of disinfectants and antiseptics against specific microbes. So in the next, in the next laboratory activity and for the video presentation that we will be or they already gave you for your lab supplements, we use disinfectants, antiseptics, to measure effectiveness or to test effectiveness, efficacy of certain disinfectants and antiseptics. This is measuring the effectiveness of this, the products, and other materials. Also, measures efficacy of disinfectants and antiseptics against specific microbes like the Staphylococcus aureus, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Staphylococcus chloroaceus. Okay. For the process of use dilution test, we have the researcher dips several metal cylinders into broth cultures of bacteria and dries them at 37 degrees Celsius. So this is the step-by-step process. They immerse dried cylinder into the disinfectant of different dilutions. Rinse with water after 10 minutes and remove excess chemicals. And after incubation of 48 hours, they will test the effectiveness. Okay? If the broth is still or there are no physical measures of growths, the disinfectants or the antiseptics are effective on that particular material. Okay, so this is measuring the effectiveness. In the laboratory, you will apply this concept in the video presentation that we perform in the lab. Okay, we will be testing, analyzing the effectiveness of certain disinfectants like Zonrox, Lysol, Phenol, Formalin, 95% ethanol. And for the antiseptics, I think we use betadine, hydrogen peroxide, 70% ethanol, or the isopropyl alcohol, or the hand soap, or the liquid soap, or the hand soap like the Bioderm, or I think the Safeguard. So this is the step-by-step measuring the effectiveness of certain disinfectants. We also use the disc diffusion method. This is used in teaching laboratories to evaluate efficacy of chemical agents. So it is also included in the video presentation. Just for your information, the current standard for measuring the effectiveness of disinfectants and antiseptics set by the American Official Analytical Chemist. So this one is hindi basta-basta. It is used, by the current standard for measuring the effectiveness of disinfectants and antiseptics set by the American Official Analytical Chemist. Okay? So in the disc diffusion methods, a clear zone representing inhibition of growth can be seen around the disc. So it can be, you can see this, in the video performance that we will be providing in the lab. I think Section G is already done, if I'm not mistaken. So if you are not done, your laboratory instructor will introduce this and for the application of the topics or the theories learned in the lecture, in the video presentation in the lab. For my Section F, Set A this afternoon, I will be providing the activities and the video presentation for the antimicrobial effectiveness of disinfectants and antimicrobials on microorganism. Okay, you can see a lot of like this in our laboratory session this afternoon. Okay, so this is the representation of the disk diffusion methods. So in the disk diffusion method, you have here the zone of inhibition. So when you say zone of inhibition, this is now the zone, okay, or you can see a halo here, a clear zone where you can now measure the effectiveness of certain disinfectant, because this one that surrounds this is now the growth of the microorganisms like Staphylococcus aureus, Escherichia coli here as a gram-negative, the Pseudomonas aeruginosa as the gram-negative in the third plate. Okay, you can test the effectiveness and analyze it if there are zone of inhibition. The greater or the larger the zone of inhibition, the better the disinfectant on that particular specific microbes. Okay? It is not that all the disinfectant will be effective to all microorganisms. There are only certain microorganisms specific to certain disinfectants or antiseptics. Same is true with antimicrobials. Not all antimicrobials are effective to certain microorganisms. This applies like when you have TB, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, not all antimicrobials will be effective to certain diseases like TB or certain etiologic agent like the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It only needs some of the drugs like rifampicin, isoniazid, okay? So this is specific. The effectiveness is if it's specific to certain microorganism, okay? So that is the zone of inhibition. Okay, the larger the zone of inhibition, the greater the effectiveness of certain disinfectants or antiseptics or antimicrobials. Okay, so this is the disk diffusion method. In use test, this is when you say in use test, this is the actual use of the chemical agents. Okay, this is the realistic but time-consuming method for determining the efficacy of a chemical. Okay, for the types of disinfectants, we have the following. Okay, so we have the phenolics. Okay, so phenolics is a compounds derived from phenol molecule that have been chemically modified by the addition of halogens or organic functional groups. Okay, so phenolics, they got it from the word phenol because the phenol, okay, like what I've said, this is the first chemical agent or the first disinfectant used by Joseph Lister, phenol or carbolic acid. Okay, it is used by Joseph Lister. Okay, first used to control surgical infections in the operating room. It is now rarely used because of its strong odor, or it has toxic effect on the human tissues or the human cells. Okay, the phenol. Okay, the phenol or the carbolic acid. The phenolics, okay, it is altered to reduce, or it's derived from the phenol. This is produced and manufactured to reduce the irritating effect of that increase, or it is derived from phenol that decrease the irritating effect, thus increase the antimicrobial activity. That is phenolic. So it is different from phenol, okay, or the carbolic acid, though it is derived from phenol. It is produced, I repeat, phenolics is produced, okay? It is derived from phenol. It is produced to reduce the irritating effect, okay? It is produced to increase the antimicrobial activity to microorganism. That is phenolics. Okay? Compounds derived from phenol, molecules that have been chemically modified by the addition of halogens or organic functional groups. So that is phenolics. Okay? By phenolics or bisphenolics, it is composed of two covalently linked phenolics such as hexachlorophene, okay? Hexachlorophene and orthophenylphenol and triclosan. Okay, so the bisphenolics is also produced and derived. Okay, the hexachlorophene is actually used in preventing staphylococcal and streptococcal skin infection in newborns. Okay, excessive use can lead to neurological damage. So hexachlorophene is a bisphenolics. Okay. The orthophenylphenol is the main ingredient of Lysol. Orthophenylphenol, the main component of Lysol. The triclosan is the main ingredient of our antibacterial soap like Bioderm, okay, like Safeguard. So if you happen to read, okay, the component of the soap, if there is triclosan in the component, meaning to say that soap, it has antibacterial activity. Pero pag walang triclosan, I happen to see one of the product of Watson, nakalagay doon no triclosan. So meaning to say, it has no antibacterial activity. It only cleanse or it only have a germicidal, kumbaga, whatever is present, okay, it can slash off whatever germs that's present, but it has no antibacterial activity. That is triclosan. Okay, for the action, okay, of phenols, phenol and phenolics, okay, intermediate to low-level disinfectants that denature proteins and disrupt, okay, cell membranes. So, like what I've said, okay, the phenolics exert antimicrobial activity by injuring the lipid-containing plasma membrane, which results in leakage of cellular component. Okay, so that's the mode of action of phenolics. So, example for those mycobacteria which has a high or which they have a high rich lipids in their cell membrane or in their cell wall, okay, or the cell membrane. This is the work of the phenolics. Okay, they denature proteins and disrupt cell membranes in for those microorganisms like mycobacteria who has much of the lipid or rich in lipid in their cellular membranes. Okay. For the advantage, it is effective even in the presence of what do you call this? Contaminating organic material and remain active on surfaces for a prolonged period. So it cannot be easily evaporates compared with alcohol, which easily evaporates. So it has it can remain active on surfaces for a long period. Okay, so this is the advantage of phenol and phenolics. For the disadvantage, of course, since they are toxic, okay, they have disagreeable odor and possible side effects. So when you say possible side effect, they can be cancerous in a way. If your cells are exposed, okay, with this kind of chemicals, you can have possible side effects. Okay, so phenol and phenolics are usually very effective in inhibiting or destroying microorganisms present in feces, okay, pus, blood, okay, phenol and phenolics. Okay, next we have the alcohol. Okay, so the alcohol is the intermediate level disinfectants which is effective as bactericidal. Okay? When you say bactericidal, okay, it kills, of course, specific bacteria. Fungicidal, specific to fungi, and virucidal, specific to viruses, but ineffective against fungal spores or bacterial endospores. So, like what I've said a while ago, there are limited usefulness of chemical agents. They are not in general effectiveness or use in all of the microorganism. Okay? So you can choose whatever is the chemical agent that can be effective on certain or specific bacteria or microorganism. So this is the alcohol. It denatures protein and disrupt cytoplasmic membranes also. Same mode of action with phenol and phenolics. For the advantage, it leaves no residue because it evaporates easily. Okay? For disadvantage, they may not contact microbes long enough to be effective. Okay? Yun ang disadvantage because they evaporate easily. They cannot make contact microbes long enough to be effective. Okay? They cannot be there in a long period of time. Okay? Because they evaporate easily. So this is one advantage of alcohol. Example of the use of alcohol, we have the 70 to 90% alcohol. We can use the rubbing alcohol, which is the isopropyl alcohol, or we have the ethyl alcohol. Remember that the two most commonly used alcohol is the ethanol, which is 70% concentration, and we have the isopropanol or the isopropyl or the disrubbing alcohol. Okay, so the isopropyl alcohol is more effective, less volatile, and it can easily be obtained from the market. Okay, mas madali. They are less volatile. I repeat, for isopropyl or the isopropanol alcohol, they are less effective, less expensive, okay, than the ethyl alcohol. They can easily obtain from the alcohol. Okay, so that's the two types of alcohol. So we have the 70 to 90% alcohol. It is used in swabbing the skin with alcohol prior to injection. So if you experience that already, okay, in the hospital, they will just get cotton and then they drop a little of the alcohol to make sure that the cotton is already moist with alcohol, and then they will rub your the skin prior to injection, okay, or extraction of blood. So that's one use of alcohol. Okay, for the halogens, we actually have 4 very reactive non-metallic chemical elements which are intermediate level antimicrobial chemicals. So they are effective against vegetative bacterial cells, fungal spores, bacterial endospores, protozoan cysts, and many viruses. So in the periodic table, you can have the halogens here, the fluorine, chlorine, okay, the bromine, and the fluorine, also the astatine. Okay, so these are examples of halogen. So what is the mode of action of the halogen? Okay, so the exact action is unknown but is thought to participate in denaturation. So when you say denaturation, it might be it can act on the denaturating proteins. Okay, so that's the mode of action of halogen. Okay, first is the iodine, which is one example of halogen. Okay, so iodine, we have the iodine tablets. Actually, I did not seen one of this. Hindi pa ako nakakakita. Dito ko palang in real life, I haven't seen iodine tablets. I don't know if it's still available in the drugstore or in our suppliers, but this is um, one example of halogen, type of halogen, okay, that can be used as a chemical agent. So iodine is the one of the oldest and most effective antiseptics. Okay, so they are active against all kinds of bacteria, endospores, fungi, and viruses. So they usually impairs protein synthesis and alters cell membrane for the iodine. Okay. So for the medical use, usually used as disinfectants for 2 to 7% potassium iodide. We have potassium iodide in the laboratory in our chemical stock room. Okay? Potassium iodide or sodium iodide and elemental iodine dissolved in a mixture of ethanol and water. So that's why it's called tincture of iodine. Okay? So another medical use of iodine is used as iodophore. So the iodophore is an iodine-containing organic compound that slowly releases iodine. So example of this is the one that's used as antiseptics. The iodophores have the antimicrobial activity of iodine, but they do not stain, and of course they are less irritating. So that's why they produce this iodophore. Same true with the phenolics and bisphenolics. Okay, they reduce the irritating effect of certain chemicals. Okay, so for the iodophore or the betadine, commercially made component of the iodine, we have the for surgery, okay, the betadine or the iodophore. This is the most commercial preparation of iodine, the betadine, okay, the povidone iodine, used mainly on the skin disinfection and wound treatment. So it can be used for surgery, burns, and injections. Okay, so they have less irritating activity and they less stain. Okay. Next, we have the chlorine. The chlorine is actually a gas. So, like what I've said, I did not see in my real life the chlorine tablets. But of course, I think they use this in most of disinfection of water or pools. So the chlorine exists as a gas itself, actually. Okay, so its germicidal action is caused by the hypochlorous acid that forms when chlorine is combined with water. Okay, chlorine when combined with water, we will get the hypochlorous acid. Okay, so the hypochlorous acid prevents much of the cellular enzymes system from functioning. Okay, so that's the chlorine. So for the chlorine compounds, we have the following examples for the chlorine compounds. When you say chlorine compounds, it has chlorine component of, or it has chlorine on it. Okay, we have the following. We have the calcium hypochlorite. We have the sodium hypochlorite. We have the chlorine dioxide and chloramine. So the chlorine hypochlorite is used to disinfect dairy equipment and what do you call this? Restaurant eating utensils. That's the calcium hypochlorite. The sodium hypochlorite, which is known as our household disinfectant, okay, and bleach or the Clorox, and as used as disinfectant in dairies production or dairy products, and used also in food processing establishments, and for those undergoing hemodialysis, or it is used in hemodialysis systems. That is sodium hypochlorite. For chlorine dioxide, okay, they are used as surface disinfectants, because it does not leave residual taste and odors. This chlorine dioxide has a broad spectrum activity. When you say broad spectrum activity, they usually kills most microorganisms. They usually either kills or both kills gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. Okay? And the chloramine, as one of the examples of chlorine compounds, okay, this is the combination of chlorine and ammonia. This is usually used in a municipal water treatment, okay, system. It is also used to sanitize glassware and eating utensils. So chloramine, I repeat, is a combination of chlorine and ammonia. Okay, it is used to sanitize sewage or water treatment system. That is chloramine. Okay. Next, we have the bromine. The bromine is effective disinfectant in hot tubs because it evaporates more slowly than chlorine at high temperatures. It's a very good alternative to chlorine. The fluorine, it has an antibacterial in drinking water and toothpaste. So that's why all in the commercials, all toothpaste like Colgate, okay, like the Pepsodent, they have fluorine on it, okay, because it has antibacterial property or activity, okay. I remember one time our dentist, this is actually very expensive when you like to have fluoride in your teeth because it has an antibacterial property. They usually paste it on the teeth, okay, to prevent it from having a decay or decaying. But this one, the disadvantage to have fluoride in the fluoride tong sinasabi ko the fluoride in the teeth, applies on the teeth, is that when you eat something like gum, yung bubble gum, sumasama siya. And you know, it's very expensive. It worth 2,000 when you have it all your teeth with fluoride. Okay? Mahal siya. So, that is the fluorine. It has antibacterial property in drinking water and toothpaste. For the oxidizing agent, okay, they are high-level disinfectants and antiseptics that are particularly effective against anaerobic microorganisms. Okay, so when you say they are particularly effective against anaerobic microorganism, okay, those microorganisms that are they don't require oxygen, or they don't need oxygen to survive. Okay, so example of oxidizing agent are the following. We have the hydrogen peroxide. Actually, hydrogen peroxide is not a good, okay, antiseptics for open wounds. Diba? Nakikita natin yan, may 10 volumes or 20 volumes hydrogen peroxide. Okay, it is because they are usually quickly broken down into water and oxygen by the enzyme catalase. We term it the peroxisome. Still remember that in the cell parts and function. Okay, so it's not a good antiseptics because it usually broken down. The hydrogen peroxide is usually broken down into water and oxygen through the enzyme catalase peroxisome. Okay. Next is the peracetic acid. So peracetic acid is one of the most effective, okay, liquid chemical sporicide. Okay. available which kills vegetative bacteria and fungi within 5 minutes and endospores and viruses within 30 minutes. So peracetic acid is one of the most effective fluid or liquid disinfectant or chemical sporicide, okay, which usually kills vegetative vegetative bacteria and fungi within 5 minutes and those endospores within 30 minutes. That is peracetic acid. Okay. How about for ozone? Ozone is often used to supplement chlorine in the disinfection, okay, of water because it helps neutralize the taste and odor. So these are the following examples of oxidizing agent. Okay. For the surfactants, these are the surface active chemicals that reduce the surface tension of solvents. Thus, the solvent becomes more effective at dissolving solute molecule. Okay, so these surfactants are usually an examples of the one that that's in the soap. Okay, so the soap has one end molecule which is hydrophobic and the other end is hydrophilic. So when you say hydrophobic, they hate water, okay, or they fear water, okay, and the hydrophilic molecule which they loves water, okay. So the surfactant, since the soap which soap is one example of surfactants, has a little value as antiseptic, but it does have an important function in the mechanical removal of microbes through scrubbing, right? When we take a bath or we wash our hands using the soap, it serves as, or it has have a mechanical, okay, removal of microbes through scrubbing. That's the mode of action of soap or the application of the soap. Normally, oil does not mix with water, right? So when we use soap, okay, the addition of soap allows oil to dissolve in water, allowing them to be rinsed away. So the hydrophobic end attracts the oil and the hydrophilic attracts the water. Okay? So the skin contains normally, 'di ba, mga oils yung you have oily skin, okay? Or it has what do you call this? Dead cells or dust or sweat, microbes or oily secretions. So usually soap breaks the oily film into tiny droplets and the water and the soap lift up the soils and the debris as the latter is rinsed off when you wash it using the soap. Okay, so that's the use or the application of the soap. So where we usually recommend and advise when we have the face-to-face to use the antibacterial soap like the Safeguard, Bioderm, the Shield, which has the antibacterial activity. Okay. Next, we have the heavy metals. Heavy metals have low-level bacteriostatic and fungi-static agents. Okay. When you say bacteriostatic, they have low-level inhibitory effect on bacteria. And they have low-level inhibitory effect on fungi. Okay. So examples of heavy metals, we have the silver nitrate, okay, the silver sulfadiazine, the thimerosal, and the copper. So the silver nitrate usually used as prophylaxis. It usually as a cream or used as prophylaxis for newborns in the prevention of gonorrheal neonatal ophthalmia. So mga parang may, if it's not a cream, a drop, okay, ophthalmic drop. Usually if the mother has a gonorrheal disease or it has a sexually transmission disease like gonorrhea, okay, usually the baby, okay, so when you give birth and you have a gonorrhea, the usually baby passes through the birth canal, right? And after giving birth, they usually drop this ophthalmic, having the 5%, I think, of silver nitrate, okay, to the baby, to have not to cause blindness in the newborn. So this is the medical use of the silver nitrate. The silver sulfadiazine is usually used for burns, usually used as topical cream siya for topical for burns. So we have a lot of this in the land. In our medicine cabinet, we have sulfadiazine, okay, anti burn ointment, okay? Is a topical cream for burns. Okay? Mahal din ito eh. For 5 gram, usually 100 plus or 300 plus. It depends on the brand. Okay? Next, we have the thimerosal. Okay? So, the thimerosal is used as antiseptics and at the same time as an antifungal agent used as preservative or for the use of vaccine. Okay? But since the thimerosal has a mercury on it, this is now of limited use, thimerosal. So because mercury is toxic, this is now usually not being used, the thimerosal. They usually have an alternative for preserving vaccines. Copper, okay, is used, okay, in chiefly in destroying green algae present when you have water reservoir at home. So used in destroying green algae grow in swimming pool and fish tanks. But in India, I read this in one of the book, okay, one of the books that I read, okay. The copper, they usually have a copper reservoir in India. Okay, since copper has an antibacterial property where it inhibits growth of algae and other microorganisms when they use as their water reservoir yung copper. Okay, yung parang yung sa atin, di ba, may banga tayo in ancient time, may banga tayo. In India, their water reservoir is made up of copper, which inhibit growth of algae and other microorganisms. So these are examples of heavy metals. Next, we have the aldehydes. So the aldehydes, we have 2% solution of glutaraldehyde and formaldehyde. So 2% solution of glutaraldehyde is the most effective antimicrobials or chemical agents. The 2% sodium glutaraldehyde is common in hospital compared in formaldehyde because formalin or the formaldehyde, which is used in preserving cadavers. So we have in the Damascus, we have cadavers there, and the ones in charge usually use formaldehyde in preserving the cadaver. He needs to maintain the cadaver with the use of formalin. But for him not to be, okay, to be less irritating, he usually add a mint, okay, yung parang perfume, okay, turpentine yata or a mint para to neutralize the odor, okay, para hindi siya masyadong mabaho, okay. So formalin is of course, for the side effect, it is carcinogenic. For the 2% solution of glutaraldehyde, this is used as a disinfectant in most clinics or hospital. Okay, so because it is less irritating and more effective than formaldehyde used in disinfecting chemical or the hospital instrument. Okay. For the gaseous agents, these are the high-level chemical method that is used to sterilize heat and water-sensitive objects. So those materials that cannot be sterilized using physical agents, those used in autoclaving, they can be sterilized using these gaseous agents. What are examples of gaseous agents? We have the ethylene oxide. So the ethylene oxide is actually used, okay, used to high sensitive materials like rubbers, those used in catheters, okay, in yung sa dialysis. So they are heat sensitive, so they can use ethylene oxide, okay, as surface disinfectant. Okay. Next, we have the propylene oxide. Okay. The propylene oxide is also used as an air disinfectant. Okay. Also used in the hospital. Okay. So propylene oxide, they can just have droplets on air, okay, to disinfect the room in enclosed spaces. Propylene oxide. The beta-propylactone, okay, is also used as surface disinfectant. It is used in most especially in vaccine, in milk products. They use this beta-propylactone. Also used as air disinfectant. Okay, so these are examples of gaseous agents. Okay. For the characteristic of an ideal chemical agent, we have the following. What are the characteristic of an ideal chemical agent? So a chemical agent must kill pathogens within a reasonable period and in specified concentration. Okay? Non-toxic to human tissues and not corrosive and non-destructive to materials. So you need to choose and select chemical agents that are less irritating and not toxic or less toxic to human tissues and not corrosive, that can be harmful to humans and those consumers. Okay. Next, it must be soluble to water and easy to apply. So when you prepare it is easily you can easily follow the instruction. It is soluble to water and easily to apply, easily to prepare. Okay. Next, it should be it should be inexpensive and easy to prepare for use. So there are chemical agents that are effective that are inexpensive. Of course, those are branded chemical agents are more expensive than those not branded. Okay, you can use Clorox instead of using Lysol, right? Because Lysol is more expensive. So you have to choose wisely using those chemical agents. And of course, it must be stable. It must be stable in the sense that it can be transported from one place to another. So it should be stable. Okay? It must be fast acting and have a broad antimicrobial spectrum. So when you say fast acting, okay, even if that is a chemical agent or antimicrobial drugs, it should be fast acting. You need to, it needs to be acted upon, okay, in humans for antimicrobial agents, for yung antibiotics. It must be act easily on the person. So when you say it acts more easily, in 1 or 2 days when that you already took the medicine, some of the symptoms should already relieve, nawala. Okay? It must be fast acting and have a broad antimicrobial spectrum. Okay. The disadvantage of having this antimicrobial spectrum, antimicrobials, yung mga antibiotics, they don't only destroy or kill both gram-negative and gram-positive, but also might destroy our normal microbiota or our normal microflora. Okay? So this is now the recap of the chemical agents. So this is the summary. For the phenols, we have the phenolics and bisphenolics. For the alcohols, we have the ethanol and isopropanol or the isopropyl. For the halogens, we have the iodine, chlorine, bromine, and fluorine. And then for the oxidizing agents, we have the hydrogen peroxide, ozone, and peracetic acid. For surfactants, we have the soap. Heavy metals, we have the silver nitrate, silver sulfadiazine, thimerosal, and copper. For the aldehydes, we have the glutaraldehyde and the formaldehyde or the formalin. And for the gaseous agents, we have, of course, the ethylene oxide, propylene oxide, and beta-propylactone. Okay? So this is now the summary or the recap of the chemical agents. Okay? For the antimicrobial agents, can we have again 1 or 2 minutes? I will just take water, okay? And go to the restroom, okay? So take a water or maybe you can go to the CR.